Hi everyone. Welcome again to Daytona Office Hours. As every week, we'll go over the past few releases, have an open floor for questions, and see what's coming up in the next releases. Okay, so as always, let me share my screen. I think maybe one more. Yeah. Okay. So since the last office hours, which was last Wednesday, we released two releases. One was 0.36.0 and one was 37.0. So the first, the first one only had one feature, as did the second one. So feature-wise, not very rich releases this week. But nonetheless, the feature introduced in 36.0 was a very important one, and that was adding the logs command to Daytona. So now users, if I start up my server, I don't think I even updated on my Mac. So let's just update for a sec and turn up the font while we're at it. So font size 22 should be way too big. 20. Okay, so now if we run Daytona serve, and after that we'll do Daytona create right away. Daytona create. Let's do my repo here. Still not. Yeah, still not up. Jumped the gun a bit here. Okay, so now that the workspace is being created, I'll just grab the name right here to make it easier. But I can even exit right now. I can do Daytona logs and then paste the name of the workspace and get the logs, or even follow them. Or even follow them completely. So this feature essentially adds more functionality to Daytona and allows users to get workspace logs on demand every time. But you can even do Daytona logs and then do the project only. So this now gets only the project logs. And this is especially, let's say, interesting when you have multi-project workspaces where you can then just grab logs from one of the projects from the workspace. Okay, so then we have a couple of fixes and refactors. So the first fix was don't log empty log entry. This was just a small fix, actually a small bug introduced by me as well last week. So just a small regression. Now still empty log entries aren't shown in the terminal. Before, if an empty entry was received by the front end, it would just log an empty, let's say, empty character, which would mess up some log streams. Then we have VS Code customizations panic fixed by Ivan. This, I think, is just a nil check for some customizations for VS Code. Then we have target set file path improvements by me. So we noticed that there were some bugs regarding the file picker when you have a provider that has a target option that, apologies, that is of type file path. And now just a couple of fixes were introduced in this release. Then we have Chore add DTN alias for bash. So we noticed that, or Ivan noticed that inside our dev container, if you use bash, you won't get the DTN alias, which is very convenient for development. So we just added it to bash as well. So no matter if you use bash or ZSH, you'll get the alias. Then we have move get Daytona script to common by me. So these couple of refactors here basically are improving Daytona's usability as a library for other projects. So moving the get Daytona script to common, which is a very important part of Daytona. It's basically the script that projects use to download Daytona inside and start the agent. So that's very important to have, let's say, exported out of Daytona if someone wants to use Daytona as a library. Then we have a refactor to server start. So now the actual Daytona server only starts the providers and it downloads the default providers, while our Headscale and Tailscale server and registry are started from the entry point, or let's say started as their own unit. Additionally, this also refactored the handling for FRP, or the reverse proxy that all these services use. So before, the server start method would manage all the FRP connections, and now each component handles that for themselves, which is just a refactor in the sense that it's basically a separation of concerns. So every component manages their own FRP, which is the preferred way of doing things. Lastly, we have refactor server version from entry point. Again, in some places we hard coded the Daytona version to get it from an internal variable, which was again inconvenient if you use Daytona as a library. Now you can specify the version of Daytona as a parameter when instancing all these components: the server, the Tailscale server, API server, and so on. So generally, this release, the most important part, as I said, was Daytona logs, and then a couple of fixes, few refactors, and that's basically it. Then we have 0370, which was released yesterday. In the last second, we added a feature to this release. So like 5 minutes before releasing, Tarun made the final commit to get this merged, and that's adding the PR number in workspace info. So for example, if we grab a PR from Daytona, let's do this one. Not even sure what it is, but if we do Daytona create, if we create a workspace from a PR, now what we can do Daytona info, Daytona, I think it should be named, and now we have the PR number listed in the info of the workspace, which is just, again, a convenience, so you know that this workspace was created from that PR. Additionally, if you change the branch inside the workspace itself, it will remove this label, because you're no longer, let's say, part of the PR itself with the code base. So you have to be on the same branch and inside the workspace for this to display. Let me just wipe these workspaces. Then we have set spinner trigger time to 15 seconds by Luca. So before, if you use a remote profile, you might have noticed that at the end, you would get a spinner that says the Tailscale connection is taking longer than usual. This spinner trigger was set to 3 seconds, which was a bit low in most scenarios, because sometimes it takes 4 seconds, so you get a flicker of the spinner. Now it's set to 15, where it actually means that it's taking longer than usual. Then we also have add TSNet directory for proper purge by Luca as well. So we noticed, or actually some of our external let's say contributors and followers of the repo, Sven noticed that when you purge Daytona and remove it off the system, a config directory was left behind, which was the TSNet Daytona directory. So essentially, this PR just moves the directory inside the Daytona config. So when you purge Daytona, it gets removed as well, so you don't get any leftovers on your system. Additionally, one last refactor of this release was Tailscale status check-in agent. This is just a refactor because before the agent itself would constantly pull an HTTP request over Tailscale that lets it know if it's connected to the server or not. That was a bit, let's say, a bit fragile, because the request might time out if there's a bad connection between those two clients. So now we just use the native Tailscale status inside the agent. So basically Tailscale itself says if it's connected or not. We don't have to do any health checks via the API ourselves. And also we have a note. So because of the TSN directory, let's say location change, users can now manually delete the directories, which I will do just right now. So we can just do rmrf and remove the directory, and that's it, because it's no longer used. And because Daytona didn't purge it before, now you can just manually remove that. And that's it from the last two releases. If anyone has any questions, as always, just stop me whenever you want. If not, we can move on to what's ahead of us. So what's the what's the next release coming up on Friday in 2 days. So 38.0, let's say, and let's draft it. So the only change we have, and it's also a breaking change, is OpenID by default on Daytona Create by Tarun. So we decided that when you run Daytona Create, and then to open the ID, currently you have to do -- code. But since most of the time users want to actually enter the ID when they create the workspace, now Daytona Create will automatically actually open the ID. And if you want to skip it, there will be a flag called no IDE. So we just flipped the default behavior in this case, and it is a breaking change because we changed up the flags, which might mess with some scripts if you use with Daytona or anything such as that. Regarding the PRs that might get merged, there are some that definitely will get merged. So one is read workspace and project logs on start and stop. I can actually show you right here how it looks like. So now when you do Daytona start, it will actually show the logs of each workspace that is being started. So you get more info about what's going on behind the scenes. And if something, I don't know, fails, or if it's taking longer than usual, you are, let's say, up to date with what's going on inside the workspace. Then we have a PR, let's say, okay, this one right here. So allow marking multiple workspaces projects for starting, stopping. So then no screenshots here, unfortunately, but before you could only mark multiple workspaces for an action when you remove them. So you could mark multiple workspaces for removal. And Nico requested actually to allow to select multiple workspaces to stop them, but then we also implemented that for starting and stopping. So you can, let's say, target multiple workspaces to start and stop them at the same time. That will get merged. Yeah, Nico, a heart is right. Then we have commit signing using SSH and GPG. This is, I think I approve this. Yeah, so it probably will go out on Friday. This will add GPG and SSH signing to our providers. So you will be able to configure a public SSH key or a public GPG key inside the provider configuration. And then when you enter the workspace, it will automatically, Daytona will automatically configure everything needed to actually set up signing. So for example, apologies, when you use public SSH key signing, we will add the public SSH key into the git config and also configure the allowed signers file as well, so you can verify the commits in git log as well. When using GPG keys, we will automatically enable forwarding of your private GPG key locally to the workspace when you SSH into it or when you open an IDE. So all of that will be done automatically, and the user just needs to input the signing method and the public signing key inside Daytona, and everything should work out of the box. And lastly, we have multiple, actually not lastly, but second to last, is multi-profile support for Git providers. Again, another big improvement for our Git providers. So with this change, as you can see, it's a long MR that's taken a few months, I think, maybe a month and almost a half. So this PR will enable users to add multiple of the same Git provider. So for example, if you have multiple GitHub accounts with different repos, you will be able to add them separately and with separate tokens. And then when creating workspace, choose between the provider that you want, and then that provider will be used to clone the repo, to push the repo, and all that fun stuff. Exciting changes coming to our Git providers. And also, lastly, the last thing that will probably get merged, I approved it again. So that's pagination for all the Get APIs for Git providers. So for example, getting branches, getting repos, getting namespaces. Namespaces are organizations in GitHub. So all these APIs are now paginated fully, and now the actual UI or the TUI will allow you to load more results as you get to the end. This is an improvement that actually solves an issue where I think it's Sven again. Yeah, so Sven noticed that if you have more than 100 repos, you can't actually list them because we actually hard-coded it to 100. So this change it could have been solved by basically allowing the API to list, I don't know, a few thousand repos, but that doesn't make much sense. So actually paginating these results makes more sense, and users will be able to filter the results as well. So this change will be definitely a welcome one for people with more than 100 providers. And I think that's it for the release coming up on Friday. There's also one PR I haven't mentioned. It's Bitbucket Server pre-built webhooks. We have some difficulties testing this, but it might actually end up going on Friday. If not, hopefully we get this done next week. That's it. So that's what we have coming up regarding some new issues that we have. Also, I want to mention, if you didn't notice, we have some issues marked with the Hacktoberfest label. So Daytona is officially taking part in Hacktoberfest. So that means that you can solve these bounties, these quests that we have in a partnership with Quira. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but yeah. So users that want to contribute more to open source or take part in Hacktoberfest, you can know that Daytona is qualified for Hacktoberfest, and we plan on adding more and more bounties and these Hacktoberfest issues as the month goes on. So definitely there will be content for everyone, and we can see that already people are coming in and trying to contribute to Daytona, not only because of Hacktoberfest, but in general as well. So that's all for Daytona Office Hours this week. If anyone has any questions, as always, stop me right now, and we can do it. If not, we can do it off the record or offline completely. That's it. Thanks for being here, and see you all next week.